Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere most dreams wouldn't dare wander. You're standing in the middle of a garden, but hold up, not your typical backyard with hydrangeas situation. This place is alive with color, motion, and music, except ... there isn't a single flower in sight. Instead, birds everywhere. They shimmer in emerald, crimson, cobalt, like someone spilled a treasure chest across the branches. And somehow, they're watching you, curious but unafraid, like you've been expected. Yeah, I know. You probably didn't plan on reincarnating tonight in the heart of a Mesoamerican empire, but ... surprise, you're in Tenochtitlán, capital of the Aztecs. And before you panic, no, you didn't drink anything weird probably, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me where and when you're listening. Midnight in Manila, dusk in Denmark. I'm always curious. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Together you walk slowly, barefoot on stone tiles cool from the shade, each one etched with spirals, suns, and birds on either side of you. Cages carved from cedar and bound with woven vines hold more birds than you've ever seen in your life. A scarlet macaw fluffs its wings, a turquoise motmot tilts its head, a quetzal long-tailed and regal watches you, like it's memorizing your soul. No, this is not one of those pizza dreams where you're suddenly wearing pajamas in public. Everything here is vivid. The air smells of earth and ancient wood. You can hear not just birdsong but the subtle flutter of feathers, the chitter of beaks on wood, the faint jingling of wind chimes made of bone and shell. You are awake in the memory of an empire. A man approaches, draped in a feathered cloak that sways like grass in the wind. His headdress mimics a hawk mid-dive. He carries a staff with a serpent head carved from obsidian. He doesn't look at you, exactly, more like he looks through you, like you're made of mist. Then, he gestures toward the heart of the garden and murmurs, "The Tlatoani awaits." You follow, you're not sure why. Your legs just trust him. And then, seated beneath a trellis woven from vines and singing birds, you see him, Moctezuma II, the emperor, the man whose name would echo through history and get wildly mispronounced in Western classrooms forever. But don't picture some grumpy gold-covered monarch. No, he sits on a throne woven from Quetzal feathers, as relaxed as a king in a hot tub, fingers dancing lazily through the air as if conducting the birdsong. He doesn't speak, he doesn't need to. His eyes say, "Look around. This is my real palace. You've just entered Totocalli, the house of birds, but no one calls it that. Most whisper the garden of the king, out of respect, and maybe a little fear. The birds here aren't just decoration. They're citizens, personalities, royal companions. Some are pampered like celebrities, hand-fed with golden spoons, sung to sleep with flutes, groomed with brushes made of rabbit fur, and the prettiest ones. Their feathers are carefully plucked one at a time in a ritual as precise as surgery. Then they're healed with herbal pastes and soot from sacred fires. Yes, you heard right. These birds get better healthcare than most modern musicians on tour. Here's something most people don't know. The Aztecs had a professional class of bird listeners. Actual people whose job was to sit quietly hour after hour transcribing bird calls and mapping changes in pitch or rhythm. Why? Because they believed the songs carried omens. If a bird changed its melody at night, something big was coming, good or bad. It depends on the bird. In fact, at one point, being a birdsong reader was more prestigious and better paid than being a warrior. Imagine trying to explain that on a dating profile. I listen to birds professionally. Instant swipe, right, or maybe not. You pause at one empty cage. There are still a few soft green feathers on the ground, fluttering in the warm breeze. The man beside you sighs. "It died yesterday," he says. A hoot silent, a green hummingbird, flew too long, forgot to rest. Maybe Quetzalcoatl called it home. You want to ask something, but your voice doesn't feel like it belongs here. Instead, you look up. A massive bird, or maybe just a very dramatic one, arcs across the golden sky. Its tail catches the sunlight like a comet, and just like that, you feel it. The beginning of something, an invitation almost, to stay, to see, to listen. Historians still debate whether this garden truly existed or was simply symbolic, a kind of royal fantasy told in overgrown poetry. But you're standing in it now. You can smell the wood smoke from the incense bowls. You can hear a quail whispering to itself. You can feel the heartbeat of a civilization in the rustle of feathers. And this dream, it's only just beginning. You're still in the garden, but now the birds are quieter. The light has changed, not darker, just warmer, like the whole sky turned into melted honey. You catch the scent of something earthy and sweet, like sap or burnt vanilla. And then you see him again, Moctezuma, except this time he's not sitting. He's walking between rows of birds, hands behind his back, nodding thoughtfully, as if each chirp is part of a diplomatic briefing. A parrot squawks and flaps. Dramatically, the emperor chuckles. And yeah, it's weird seeing someone so powerful giggle at a bird, but there's something undeniably human about it. You're watching a man who has everything. Obsess over color. Because here's the thing, Moctezuma II wasn't just a ruler. He was a collector, a curator, a man with an almost ridiculous love for anything vibrant, rare, and feathered. If you think you have a Pinterest board addiction, this guy had a live Pinterest garden full of winged jewels. He walks past a caretaker who bows so low he almost headbutts a flamingo. The emperor gestures toward a bird with feathers so iridescent they shift from green to violet depending on how you blink. Too dull, he mutters. The bird shrieks in protest, as if offended. Moctezuma ignores it. Harsh critic. You trail behind him, realizing that this isn't just vanity, it's ideology. In Aztec cosmology, beauty wasn't optional. It was a form of sacred order. Bright colors represented life force, divine favor, cosmic alignment. So, a garden like this wasn't just Moctezuma showing off. It was him saying, look, the gods smile on us. See how their birds thrive in our care. There's a story you overhear from a nearby servant, whispered like gossip between two boys scrubbing a water basin. Apparently Moctezuma once sent emissaries halfway across the continent to fetch a single bird said to have feathers the color of fire inside a ruby. It took months. When they returned, the bird had molted mid-journey. The emperor wept, seriously wept, over a featherless parrot, and then ordered a shrine built for the memory of its colors. Drama king, maybe, but also kind of poetic. The emperor stops again. He's now in front of a massive aviary 2 stories tall, draped in golden netting, guarded by 2 men with obsidian blades and facial tattoos of jaguars. Inside, birds flit between miniature trees, perches, and bowls of honey water. But in the center, perched on a carved stone ring, is a Quetzal, and not just any Quetzal. This one looks like it's made of emerald lightning. Long tail feathers flow behind it like silken water. Its chest is blood red, and when it moves, every muscle is poetry. This bird is clearly his favorite. Do you know, says a voice behind you, feminine, dry, ancient. He named it, one after the morning star. You turn. An older woman, eyes sharp as cactus spines, leans on a staff shaped like a heron's beak. She smiles without warmth. He thinks it watches the sky for him. When its feathers change, he changes his counsel. And yeah, that sounds nuts. Until you remember, people today invest based on moon phases and wear quartz necklaces to avoid bad vibes. Humans never really outgrow superstition, we just give it new packaging. She tells you Moctezuma once rejected an alliance with a powerful northern city because the bird flapped 3 times and turned its back before dawn. 3 flaps, she scoffs. Changed history. And history was shifting. What you don't know but maybe feel in your gut is that Moctezuma's obsession with feathers isn't just about divinity or aesthetics. It's also about distraction. The Spanish are coming. Whispers of pale-skinned strangers riding beasts, with thunder in their hands and greed in their eyes, have already reached the emperor's ears. But he doesn't act. He watches birds. Historians still debate whether this was denial, religious awe, or clever stalling. Some say he believed the invaders were gods. Others think he simply froze like a deer hypnotized by its reflection. The records are full of contradictions, and every version tells you more about the people writing it than the man himself. But right now, all you know is this. You're in the presence of someone who's trying to hold a world together with wings. The emperor steps away, and the birds fill the space he leaves behind with noise, not panic, but a kind of ambient awareness, like they know something's shifting in the air. And then, just as the sun drops below the horizon, one single feather, green and impossibly soft, floats down from the Quetzal's tail. It lands at your feet. The woman beside you sees it, and mutters, "That's the 3rd this week." You bend to pick it up. It's warm, almost alive and far away. Somewhere outside the garden a war drum beats once. Just once, but you feel it in your bones. You tuck the feather into your belt and keep walking. The feather is still tucked into your belt, soft, strange, and somehow heavier than it looks, like it's carrying a memory that doesn't quite belong to you yet. As you move deeper into the garden, the paths narrow, the trees lean closer, and the birds shift. They don't sing now. They whisper, like they know you're about to see something most outsiders never did. A soft tapping reaches your ears, rhythmic, delicate, like someone weaving sound out of thin air. You follow it to a low stone building nestled under flowering vines, though again, not flowers in the modern sense. These are feathery, pale-orange growths that look more like sea creatures than petals. The air smells like ash and tamarind, a familiar scent if you've ever stood near a bonfire right after a summer rain. Inside it's dim, warm, and filled with silence so thick it hums. Then you see them, the artists. 4 men and 2 women, seated on woven mats, hunched over small wooden frames. Each one works with tweezers no larger than a hummingbird's beak. They don't speak. They barely breathe. Their hands move like they're threading sunlight through cobwebs. These are the Amonteca, the feather artisans. And they are magicians, except instead of pulling rabbits out of hats, they pull entire worlds from feathers. One is crafting a radiant sunburst from layers of yellow toucan down, so fine it looks like it's glowing. Another carefully presses tiny strips of blue jay feathers into a mask shaped like a coyote's face. The third, she's making a cloak or the start of one built entirely from Quetzal tail feathers. Just the part she's done so far would make a red carpet blush. You step closer, breath caught in your throat. The details are absurd. Feathers are laid in such precise gradients that you'd swear someone airbrushed them. No paint, no dye, just natural color, organized with obsessive precision. The result, patterns that look like stained glass or pixel art, centuries before HD or pixels existed. One of the artists, a man with arms tattooed in geometric spirals, glances up at you. His face is calm but alert, like someone who spent his life listening more than speaking. He nods at the feather in your belt. From the starbird, he says, rare, lucky, dangerous too. You want to ask why dangerous, but he's already returned to his work, trimming a strand of shimmering green with the kind of focus most people only reserve for defusing bombs or cutting their own bangs. During emotional crises, you notice that each workspace has a bowl of water, a set of carving knives, and a tiny altar not to gods, but to birds. Skulls, feathers, little carvings, offerings. This is a sacred trade, not just craft, not just art. These people are preserving the soul of a civilization in plumage. Here's the twist. None of them own the feathers they work with. The feathers belong to the empire. Technically, to the gods. Each strand is logged, counted, tracked. Some are gifts from nobles, others are taxes paid by distant provinces, and once a feather is used in a royal piece, it becomes untouchable. Literally, if you touch it without permission. Best case, you get a lecture. Worst case, well, let's just say Aztecs had very creative punishments. Feather theft was not a cute crime. You sit near the woman working on the coyote mask. She doesn't acknowledge you, but she doesn't tell you to leave either. After a while, you notice she's layering brown feathers at the edges, not for color, for texture, to make it feel fur-like. And there, right between the eyes, she places a single white feather, the kind of detail you'd miss if you blinked, the kind that makes the difference between nice masks and I think it just looked at me. You learn that every emo begins training as a child, not just in technique, but in patience. Some pieces take months. One ceremonial headdress, the kind worn only by emperors or high priests, could take an entire year, and that's with a team. Imagine spending a year of your life making something you'll never wear, never sell, never even sign, just to serve a story, a god, a moment, and yet, none of them look bored. No one's on their version of Aztec Instagram. This is their joy, their calling, their resistance, maybe, because here's the historical fun fact. After the Spanish arrived, some of these artists were captured, forced to recreate their art using European materials. Others hid, changed their names, preserved techniques in whispers and hands. Today, scholars still argue whether certain surviving pieces, especially the famous Penicho of Moctezuma, were made for war, for worship, or for diplomacy. Truth is, probably all three. Depends who you ask. Depends what you need to believe. You glance back at the sunburst piece, now almost complete. It shimmers like it's lit from within. A sun that never sets, and somewhere far away you hear a bird cry, a sharp, urgent sound. The man with the spiral tattoos freezes mid-placement. That's not a good sound, he mutters. The woman beside him makes the sign of Quetzalcoatl, a spiral traced over the heart. You feel it too, the pressure shift in the air. Like when a storm decides it's done being polite. Outside, the birds are louder now, not panicked, just uneasy. Like the garden itself is waking up to something it didn't expect. You rise to your feet, still, holding that green feather, and the artisans, one by one, begin to pack their tools, slowly, deliberately, like they've done this before, like they know what happens when the bird stops singing. You step outside into the thickening dusk and wonder. It's early morning now, the kind of morning where the air tastes clean, like the world's just been rinsed. Light seeps through the trees in thin golden stripes, and dew glistens on the leaves like the garden cried a little in its sleep. You stretch not because you're tired, but because something in the earth beneath you hums with energy. Today, you're not just watching, you're going hunting, except not the kind of hunting you'd expect. There are no traps, no arrows, no dramatic war paint. Instead, the group preparing beside you is assembling flutes, fruit baskets lined with soft cotton, and one guy has a puppet shaped like a parrot, right? This is not your uncle's duck blind. The man leading the team, skin darkened by sun, hands calloused like river stones, grins at you and winks. We're not catching prey, he says. We're persuading guests. You soon learn his name is Tecolo, which loosely means owl. He's the head of one of the emperor's elite birdcatching crews. But calling them that feels like calling chefs ingredient acquires. This is an art form. See, we can't bruise the feathers, he explains as he fits a reed flute to his lips. Not even the tiniest bend. They're worth more than silver. The crew is heading out to the cloud forests east of the city, the kind of place where mist moves like an animal and every rock has its own legend. You follow them on foot, walking for hours through low canopies and moss-covered trails. You hear birds before you see them, high fluting calls, soft whistles, even tiny screeches like laughter. It's like the forest is eavesdropping on itself. When the group stops, Tecolo lifts a hand. Silence. Then he begins to play. The flute's sound is thin and glassy, almost sad, but the effect is immediate, a flash of blue in the branches, then red, then green. Birds begin to appear, hopping from branch to branch, curious but cautious. One of the younger boys tosses bits of mashed papaya onto a flat stone. Another imitates the rustle of leaves with his hands, and one by one the birds come down. Not all of them, not the shy ones, but enough. They land, they tilt their heads. One even lands on Tecolo's shoulder, pecks his ear and promptly poops on him. He laughs. "It's a blessing," he says, wiping it off. You suspect he might be lying. Once the birds are close, the real trick begins. A girl, maybe 10 years old, steps forward. She holds a tiny cage made of sugarcane, no trapdoor, no bait, just ... open space. She sets it on the ground and waits. Not still, not stiff, just calm, like the birds need to feel they're choosing, not being chosen. Eventually, one hops in, just like that. Then another. The girl whispers something in Nahuatl you can't quite catch. It sounds like thank you. No struggle, no screams, just cooperation. Just cooperation. You learn that these birds aren't taken often. Only certain feathers are needed, and only from healthy birds. Most are released after a few weeks. Some even return on their own, like they know they'll be treated well. Still, it's not perfect. Teclo admits sometimes a bird gets stressed, sometimes it doesn't sing again. That's the price, he says. We try to keep it low. As the sun climbs, the crew rests under a ceiba tree, massive and ancient. Its roots like sleeping serpents. You chew on roasted corn and listen to their stories. One time a hunter swore a hummingbird cursed him for trying to trap it in the rain. Another time someone claimed a bird led him to a cave filled with jade, and promptly forgot the way back. The birds, one woman says, know more than we do. We just pretend they don't. But here's the weird part. Some of them think the birds want to be part of the empire, that they're volunteers in some divine drama, that when a Quetzal lets its tail feathers be plucked, it's not defeat, it's sacrifice. You almost laugh, but then you remember yesterday, the Quetzal in the emperor's garden. The feather you're still carrying, the way it landed at your feet like a chosen message. Maybe they're right. It's strange, isn't it? You live in a world where birds are background noise, pretty things, pet store purchases, but here they're prophets, oracles, symbols of the gods' attention. And yeah, there's the fact that not everyone's thrilled about this whole harvest the beauty arrangement. Some rival cities consider it theft. Others think the Aztecs have turned feathers into obsession. There are debates, protests, songs written in secret, warning of a world too focused on surface, forgetting substance. But back in the forest, none of that noise matters. You watch as Tecolo gently lifts a captured bird, a trogon, its feathers dark and luminous, and strokes its chest with his thumb. Not possession. Reverence. You'll be beautiful in the priest's robe, he murmurs. Just one feather. Friend. Then home. And somehow, the bird stays still. The crew begins the journey back. Baskets full, not of treasure in the traditional sense, but of color, motion, and silence made visible. You walk with them, feeling the rhythm of their steps. The trees thin, the air warms, and somewhere behind you, a single bird sings, low, clear, like it's watching you leave and blessing your return. By the time you return to the city, the sun is high and the garden hums with new activity. Servants dart past with water jugs. Birds chatter like gossiping aunties. Somewhere, someone's beating a drum, just enough to keep time but not enough to start anything. And in the middle of all this motion, trade. You walk toward a wide-open plaza just beyond the palace gardens, where the air buzzes with heat and haggling. This is the Tenochtitlan, the marketplace, and today, it's Feather Day. Or at least that's what Tecolo calls it, as he wipes sweat from his forehead and gestures toward the crowd. This, he says, is where feathers fly faster than lies. What he means is, welcome to the Aztec Feather Exchange. Part art show, part auction house, part social experiment. Everywhere you look, there are feathers arranged, stacked, bundled, bartered, some bundled in fans, some pressed into cloaks, others tied in delicate loops onto woven cords, each labeled with a knot system that looks like someone tried to write in Morse code with string. You wander through the rows. One standoffers flamingo, plumes dyed with cochineal, a red so rich it makes blood look watered down. Another displays feather mosaics on flat bark panels, gods in profile, jaguars mid-roar, even a full-on rainbow spiral that looks like a Pinterest board fell in love with a thunderstorm dot next to that. A woman selling single Quetzal feathers, just one cradled in soft cotton like a newborn. She tells you with a wink, 3 of these will buy you a canoe, 4 and you've got dinner for a month. You're not sure if she's joking. You're not sure you want to find out. Then there's the buyers. Nobles in embroidered robes glide by, followed by runners and scribes, priests with soot-blackened arms, inspecting feathers like fortune-tellers read bones, even warriors, though not the frontliners. These are the high-rankers, those allowed to wear feathered helmets shaped like serpents, hawks, or stars. One of them wears a breastplate so covered in peacock feathers it shimmers with every breath, like he's armor-plated in gossip. Some buyers come with detailed requests. I need green with purple shift for a sun festival cape. Others are more dramatic. Give me whatever looks like a god sneezing in the jungle. And yeah, people talk price, but not just in cacao beans or maize. Status gets traded here too. Favor secrets, the promise of support and counsel. A feather might buy a smile or start a blood feud. One boy tries to trade a jaguar tooth for a hummingbird feather. The seller squints, only if it came from a jaguar who whispered your name before dying. Banter like that is normal, and behind the jokes, real power. Because in Aztec society, feathers aren't just fashion, they're status, identity. If you're seen in public with the wrong color combination or feathers above your rank, yeah, that's a fine, or a flogging, or public humiliation involving a turkey. The punishments vary, but the message stays the same. Feathers are serious. Even priests have rules. Only certain feathers can be used in certain ceremonies. Only specific birds are tied to specific gods. One to honor Quetzal, goddess of beauty and love. Better have yellow and green tail feathers. One to impress Tenochtitlán, lord of fate and shadow. Hope you like dark blue and obsidian black. One merchant, spotting you, waves you over. He offers a headband woven with heron feathers, pale silver, soft as fog. For clarity, he says. For dreams. For walking through other people's stories. You ask how much he leans in. Just your favorite memory. Okay, maybe he's poetic. Maybe he's joking. But also, maybe not. Some say feathers remember that once they've been part of a bird, they still carry echoes of wind, of height, of heartbeats in the clouds. And wearing them, that's not decoration. That's invitation. That's becoming part of the story. You keep walking toward the back of the market. The mood shifts. Less gold, more dust. This is where the smaller trades happen. Feathers not rare enough for royalty, but still rich with color. Here, artisans barter for their next pieces. You see a young Amanteca arguing over the price of teal parrot feathers, while another wraps a fan in rough cotton to protect it from sun. Here's a secret you overhear. Sometimes feathers get stolen. Black market. Hidden cages. It's not common, but it's real. There's a quiet war beneath the feathers, between those who raise birds with care and those who snatch and pluck without ceremony. One artist spits when the subject comes up. They rip out the soul, he says. And the work ends up cursed. A few feathers, he insists, hum when you hold them, but stolen ones, they stay silent. The sun is dropping now, casting gold on everything, which, somehow, makes the feathers glow even more. You pass a stall selling headdresses taller than you are, another with fans shaped like flowers, each petal a different bird's gift. A child runs past with a feather in each hand, giggling like she just found magic. Maybe she did. You think back to that trogon in the forest, to Tecolo's hand, to the girl with the sugarcane cage. You wonder what happened to those feathers. Are they here now? Bartered, bundled, whispered over. And then, suddenly, the marketplace pauses. A gong rings. Soft, not urgent. A priest steps forward, holding a single black feather tipped with blue. He raises it skyward. Silence falls. Someone near you mutters, offering. You watch as the priest places the feather into a stone bowl filled with coals. Smoke rises thin, gray, and scented with copal. The feather curls, darkens, vanishes, and just like that, the market resumes, louder, brighter, as if everyone needed a moment to remember why any of this matters. As you leave, a gust of wind lifts a loose feather into the air. It spins once, twice, and lands on your shoulder like it shows you again. You don't brush it off. The feather on your shoulder stays there as you walk, like a soft little badge of permission, or maybe warning. You're not sure which, but it seems to open doors, because now you're somewhere you absolutely shouldn't be. The palace interior, and not the touristy look at the nice stonework part. This is deeper, quieter, the kind of place where voices echo longer than footsteps, where guards don't stand still, they watch. Even the birds here are subdued, perched on beams or tucked into alcoves, as if they know this space is for secrets, not songs. This is where feathers mean more than fashion here. They are power. You slip through a narrow hallway carved with jaguars and stars, until you reach a chamber lit by hanging oil lamps. At first glance it looks like a dressing room. Racks of robes, shelves stacked with headdresses. But then your eyes adjust, and you realize this is a vault of identities. There's a cape entirely covered in red ibis feathers, glossy, liquid-looking, designed for blood rituals. A fan made from owl wings, meant for night ceremonies. A warrior's helmet shaped like an eagle's head, where real talons extend like teeth from its crown. A quiet voice speaks behind you. Every feather tells someone what you are. You turned out a man middle-aged, wearing a simple tunic. No jewelry, no weapon, but his presence, thick, like someone used to not being interrupted. You know who I am, he says flatly. And yeah, you do. This is one of Moctezuma's political advisors. A man whose words can cause wars or stop them with a nod. He walks toward the eagle helmet and runs a finger along its beak. There are rules, he says. Only warriors who captured enemies in battle can wear this. You wear it without earning it. You're a liar, and the gods know. He gestures toward another piece, a priest's shawl, woven from white egret feathers and blue jay tips. This is worn during naming ceremonies. It's not just pretty, it invites the spirit of the child into the world. He steps closer. Feathers tell stories, but they also tell lies. And in this room, the difference matters. He leads you through the collection. And with every piece you start to see the Aztec political system not as rigid or hierarchical, but as performative. Every rank is a costume, every ritual a stage. The nobles, wrapped in shimmering cloaks, announcing their lineage without saying a word. Priests feathered with specific birds tied to their deities. Hummingbird for Huitzilopochtli, macaw for Totocalli. Even punishments were feathered. Wear what you haven't earned. You might be paraded through the city with your feathers ripped off, one by one. Or worse, publicly redressed in turkey fluff, a walking joke for a month. Honestly, the Aztecs had a talent for symbolic humiliation. Kind of makes modern cancel culture look like light jazz. But here's the deeper twist. Feathers weren't just markers of status, they made the status real. If the council stripped you of your feathered regalia, your identity collapsed with it. You didn't just lose rank. You ceased to be that person. Like the feathers were the soul's clothing. You glance at a headdress so tall it scrapes the ceiling. Green, gold, black, a crown of birds. Was that the emperor's? You ask. No, the advisor replies. That was for visiting kings. You blink. Wait, you gave them this. He nods. Diplomacy. Gifts of beauty disarm better than blades. And suddenly, you get it. The feathers weren't just decoration. They were tools, weapons and silk. You didn't send warriors into battle every day, but you did send messages. And sometimes, that message was a cloak so dazzling it made a rival forget his anger, or remember his debt. There's a scroll nearby, thin bark, painted with figures. One shows two rulers shaking hands. One wears a feathered collar. The other, nothing. You point. That means the one with the feathers won. Of course, still not everyone played by the same rules. The advisor tells you about a scandal, a noble who commissioned a cloak to grant for his rank. He claimed it was a tribute to the gods, but really he wanted to impress a woman from another house. The council saw through it. He was stripped, fined, and forbidden from wearing feathers for a full harvest cycle. Social death. There are still debates, he admits, about whether we honor feathers, or are enslaved by them. You ask what he means. He shrugs. Maybe. We've built too much meaning into color and plume. Maybe the gods don't care what birds we wear. You don't answer. Because how do you answer that? A guard enters, whispers something. The advisor straightens. The emperor has summoned his council. Then, to you, you should go now, but as you turn to leave, he catches your sleeve. One more thing, he says. That feather you carry, the one from the starboard. You nod. Keep it hidden. You ask why. He hesitates. Because not all birds in this palace sing for joy. You leave the chamber, head spinning. The hallway seems darker now. The birds you pass, watching you again. The feather in your belt, somehow warmer than before, and somewhere in the city, drums begin to sound. Not ceremonial, not festive. Warning drums. It seems the feathers are starting to ruffle. The drums are still going, low, steady, and just a bit off, like a heartbeat that knows something's wrong before the mind does. You follow the sound through a narrow passage that opens into a strange courtyard. No guards, no nobles. Just trees. Small ones, carefully shaped in the middle. A platform surrounded by woven mats and carved flutes. And birds. Not exotic birds this time. Not the feathered celebrities of the emperor's garden. These are smaller, plainer nightingales. Thrushes, blackbirds, finches, the kind of birds that would get 0 likes on a royal TikTok. But here, they are stars because this is the place where birds learn to sing. You've entered the House of Sound, as one caretaker calls it. A place where birdsong isn't just admired, it's studied, shaped, trained. This isn't a zoo, it's a conservatory. Old man sits cross-legged near the platform, eyes closed, breathing in rhythm with the drums. He's holding a bone flute no longer than his hand, carved to look like a serpent. He plays a single note. Soft, pure. One of the birds answers. Not mimicking, replying, and just like that, the conversation begins. You sit quietly, listening as flute and chirp bounce off the courtyard walls like verbal ping. Another caretaker joins in with a reed whistle, introducing a melody. The birds begin to layer in, some perfectly, some clumsily. One bird gets it hilariously wrong, lets out a sharp squawk, and everyone, even the birds, seems to pause. Like, dude, come on. You stifle a laugh, but you quickly realize this isn't just a jam session, it's training. The Aztecs believed that birdsong could carry emotion, intent, even prophecy. A well-trained bird could replicate tones used in royal announcements, or sing specific melodies associated with gods or seasons. There were birds whose entire purpose was to sing just one song at the right moment during a ritual. That's pressure. Imagine your whole life building to a single 3-second solo during the spring equinox. Miss a note, and someone might assume the gods are angry. You learn from a soft-spoken woman, half her face tattooed with delicate spirals, that each bird here has a tone name, not just a sound, but a spiritual frequency, like a soul signature. Trainers would match birds with flutes made from reeds grown during specific moon phases to amplify their unique voice. Modern science might raise an eyebrow here, but honestly, have you ever heard a flute made from moon-grown river reed tuned to the key of prophecy? Didn't think so. And here's the part that sticks with you. Some birds aren't trained how to sing, but when the Aztecs used birds as living clocks, a certain trill meant sunrise. Another meant the market was opening. One rare bird, known simply as the caller, was said to sing only before major change, like an omen with feathers. The old man gestures to a cage near him. Inside, a bird with muted gray feathers stares directly at you. Nothing flashy, no shine, but its eyes intense, calculating. That one, he says, sings before endings. Cool. Not creepy at all. He tells you about a time when the bird sang 3 times during a full moon, and the next day, a small earthquake shook the northern fields. Another time, it sang at noon, and that evening, a high priest drowned in a ceremonial pool. Coincidence? Some say yes. Others whisper about gods using birds as messengers when they're feeling subtle. Not everyone agrees. Of course, there were skeptics in the empire too. Priests who rolled their eyes. Historians who claimed the birds were just birds, and the people were projecting patterns onto chaos. Basically ancient Reddit threads. But here's a detail you don't expect. Birdsong was sometimes composed, like written in advance, passed down from master to apprentice. Certain melodies were treated like scripture, only performed during eclipses or funerals or coronations, and only by birds who had been initiated. You pause on that word, initiated. Turns out, birds went through ceremonies, not like full-on toga parties, but symbolic rituals to invite them into the story. They'd be sung to, fed specific herbs, shown images painted in natural dyes, shapes, meant to trigger memory or bond them to their melody. One trainer tells you a bird who understands its song will never sing it in the wrong place. You try to process that, but meanwhile, the great bird lets out a single note. High, clean, sharp. Everyone in the courtyard stops, even the old man that's new. He whispers. A few people shift uncomfortably. One grabs a bundle of sage and begins to burn it. Another hums something low and repetitive, like an old lullaby. The bird stares at you again. You ... stare back. And yeah, now the feather in your belt feels noticeably warmer. A younger trainer approaches you. He's carrying a wooden tablet, lightly etched with a musical pattern. If you dream of a melody, he says, write it down. If a bird sings it back, it's yours. You blink, and if it doesn't, then it belongs to someone else, he says, or to no one. The courtyard begins to wind down. The birds are fed. The flutes are wrapped in cloth. The trainers murmur to one another, casting glances toward the sky where clouds are gathering fast, dark, and quiet. You take one last look at the gray bird. It hasn't moved, but somehow you feel like it already flew away and left something behind inside you. You step back into the hall. The hum of the courtyard fading like a distant song, and behind you, 3 birds begin to sing in harmony. You don't know the melody, but it knows you. You dreamt something last night, a voice in birdsong, a girl with a crown of feathers, crying without sound, a warrior standing in a field of red petals that weren't petals at all. When you woke, the feather was still tucked in your belt, cool, again like it had used up its heat while you slept. Now you're in a different part of the city, quiet, far from the traders and courtiers, beyond the garden walls and sacred drums. Here murals stretch across clay walls, faded but still alive, with story, and in the center of the square, a storyteller stands beneath a painted frieze of birds mid-flight and women in long flowing robes. Children gather around her feet. She wears feathers in her hair, not fancy ones, just simple gray dove plumes, soft and unsure. You sit nearby, not drawing attention, and listen. She begins the tale. There once was a girl named Xochitl, whose laugh made birds follow her home. Wherever she walked, flowers opened, not in the soil but on her skin. Already the kids are wide-eyed. A few reach out as if to touch invisible petals. She loved the garden more than anything. But one day a young warrior appeared, brave and handsome, with jaguar skin armor and eyes like stormlight. He promised her stories, promised her forever. The storyteller pauses, looks at the mural. You follow her gaze. There, in ochre and jade paint, the girl Xochitl stands, beside the warrior, hand in hand beneath a blooming ceiba tree. Birds swirl above them. But forever didn't last. The storyteller says softly, he left for battle, promised to return with glory. But he didn't return at all. Some kids gasp. One mutters something that sounds suspiciously like men. Even 500-year-old heartbreaks are relatable. That the woman continues. So, the girl went into the garden. She stood beneath the singing trees, where the birds still remembered her laugh. And she said, if I cannot bloom beside him, I will fly above him. And she vanished. The children leaned forward, and the next morning a bird no one had ever seen before appeared, bright as flame, light as wind, singing a song no human mouth could shape. The people called it Xochitl, the flower bird. It sang only when the sun rose, and only where hearts had been broken. A hush falls. Even the pigeons seemed to pause. Some say she became a spirit. Others say she watches lovers, warns them when the wrong one is coming. The kids laugh nervously. One of them turns to you and whispers, "You have a feather. Maybe you're cursed." You whisper back, "Maybe I'm warning you." They shriek, delighted, but you can't stop thinking about the story. The girl, the loss, the transformation. Later, the storyteller notices you lingering. She walks over, squints at you, then gestures toward the wall. "That's not just a tale," she says. "That's history, just softened by time." You ask if Xochitl was real. She shrugs. "Doesn't matter. She's true." That line hits you harder than expected. You tell her about the gray bird, the singing courtyard, the feather that won't go away. She smiles, then nods toward a building nearby. "Come," she says. "There's something I want you to see." You follow her into a cool, dark room. On the walls, hundreds of tiny paintings, no bigger than your hand, each one made entirely of feathers. Not paint, not ink, just overlapping layers of color. You step closer. One panel shows a hummingbird sipping from a skull. Another, a goddess with wings made of flame. Then you see it, the flower-bird. It glows with reds and oranges, tail feathers flowing like fire down the length of the panel. Its eyes are made of polished obsidian. Its wings curve into a heart, cracked slightly down the center. You recognize it, not from this life maybe, but your chest tightens like you've just remembered the ending of a story you were too young to understand the first time. The storyteller stands behind you. "This was made by the Amonteca," she says. "A piece of mourning, or maybe of warning." You ask, "Did she ever turn back?" "No," the woman replies. "She learned to love the sky more than the ground." You turn back toward the painting. Something in your feather stirs, a flicker of warmth. "Just for a breath. Not all birds in this empire were born birds," she adds quietly. "Some were made, forged by love, or loss, or rage." Outside, a bell tolls, not a drum, not music, a real bell. You freeze. The storyteller's expression shifts. "The visitors have come," she says, "from across the sea." You blink. Wait. The visitors. A boy runs past the door shouting in Nahuatl. You catch the words "white sails" and "metal faces." Your skin goes cold. You look back at the flower-bird. It looks back, and somehow you understand. The next chapter of the story is no longer legend, it's happening now. You don't run, but your steps are faster now, pulled by the shift in the air. Not the wind exactly, but something stranger, like a tide in the sky itself, drawing breath in. The streets are restless. Markets half-packed, birds caged early. Voices just a little too low. A city that knows it's still breathing but isn't sure if it should be. The feather in your belt. It's stiff now, cold, as if it's bracing for something. You make your way back toward the garden, only to find the outer gates closed, guards posted, eyes locked, jaws tight. A servant you recognize from the House of Sound hurries past and whispers without stopping. They're watching the birds. You follow the direction she came from, circling the garden wall, until you find an opening in the old stone. You duck through, climb a few broken steps, and drop into a grove that's technically off-limits. It smells different today, less sweet, more metallic, like iron in the air before a lightning strike. The garden is quiet but not empty. A wide clearing. 5 priests stand in a half-circle. In front of them, perches, branches, and a series of small, open cages. Inside each, one bird. Just one. Not the dazzling kind. These are ravens, owls, grackles, nightbirds, birds of omen. And at the center, a clamatine. A wise man crouched low, whispering something in a dialect you don't know, but somehow understand anyway. The words aren't for you. They're for the birds. You keep your distance, settle behind a fig tree, and watch. Each priest steps forward in turn, holding a small bowl, obsidian water, powdered bone, crushed seeds. They touch the birds gently, draw lines across their heads, their wings, their beaks. Then the clamatine speaks. "Show us what the gods refuse to say aloud," and the watching begins. There are no flutes, no incense, no chants. Don't chants at first. Nothing. Then one bird flaps its wings, another leans toward the west and croaks once. A third begins to preen, slow, deliberate, almost nervous. The priests say nothing, but they watch everything. The angle of each feather, the rhythm of each blink. One bird hops 3 times, then stops cold. That alone causes one priest to take a sharp breath. You realize this is a language entirely built from instinct and movement. Birds don't lie, that's what they say. A god might conceal, a man might deceive, but a bird, watched closely enough, will always reveal the truth. And today, the truth is unsettling. A raven arches its neck and lets out a hoarse call. Not loud, but wrong. A sound that doesn't belong to morning. The wise man stiffens. He turns to a younger priest. "Did it sing that before?" he asks. The boy swallows. "Never." Another bird, the smallest one, barely the size of a child's fist, begins to shake, not violently, just ... like it's remembering something it hasn't lived yet, and then it stops. Breathing. Dies. Just like that. Silence. No one moves. Even the wind seems to hesitate. One of the priests kneels beside it, touches its still breasts, and murmurs something you can't hear. You step backward. Slow, like the ground might snap if you move too fast. But the Tlamatini's voice finds you anyway. You feel it too, he says, not looking up. You want to deny it, But the feather in your belt pulses with heat again. This time it doesn't burn. It hums, a low vibration you can feel in your teeth. He finally turns. His eyes are pale, not blind but distant, like he's seeing through time, not space. You're not from here, he says. You freeze. But you were meant to be here, he adds. The birds knew before you did. You step forward. Slowly. The dead bird lies still between you. You want to ask what it meant, that final trembling, but you don't need to. The others are already packing up, not frantic, not afraid, certain. The sky darkens, not night, just heavy, pregnant with something it hasn't delivered yet. You feel it like a knot behind your ribs. The Tlamatin speaks again. When Quetzalcoatl left this world, he promised to return as a man made of light, with skin like bone. He said the birds would sing differently when he was near. And now, you ask, voice hoarse, they're not singing, he says. You remember the storyteller's words. Some birds were forged by love, or loss, or rage. What happens when they're forged by fear? A sudden gust rustles the trees. Several birds take flight all at once, not panicked, but together, synchronized, like a warning flag raised in feathers. The Tlamatin doesn't flinch. He just watches, and then he whispers something that doesn't sound like a prayer, more like a farewell. You turn and leave the grove behind you. The last bird begins to sing, a song with no melody, just rhythm like war drums, but made of wings. You hear the horses before you see them, which is strange because horses aren't supposed to exist here, not in this city, not in this world. But they're coming, hoofbeats like thunder striking the stone, causeways echoing through the air, like the sky itself is cracking, and along with them, metal, the clank of armor, the hiss of steel in sunlight, sounds that don't belong in Tenochtitlan, sounds that make even the birds go silent. You're standing on the edge of a high terrace, overlooking the city's great central plaza. Below, people are gathering slowly, carefully, the way people gather when they have to, not when they want to. Eyes everywhere, children clinging to mothers, merchants abandoning their stalls. And in the middle of it all, moving in a line like something conjured from a fever dream, the visitors. They are pale, shiny expressions like carved stone, some with strange cloths wrapped around their heads, others wearing helmets shaped like bowls. They ride beasts unlike anything these streets have seen before, massive, snorting, hoofed creatures that make even the bravest warriors step back. Horses. Horses. You knew they were coming. The garden knew, the birds knew, but knowing doesn't feel like understanding. Now you understand. Moctezuma stands at the front of the platform, flanked by nobles dressed in every color imaginable. Gold, jade, feathers layered like flame. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. You think he looks like a statue pretending to be human. The visitors approach him. Their leader steps forward. You recognize him before anyone says his name. Court's history has already stamped his image into the backs of textbooks and the mouths of tour guides. But here, in this moment, he is just a man, sunburned, calculating, wearing a breastplate that reflects the sky. He does not bow. Instead, he removes his helmet slowly, deliberately, and lets the silence swallow the gesture whole. Moctezuma speaks first. His voice is even ceremonial. You don't know the words, but you recognize the tone. It's the sound of someone offering peace with one hand while hiding a blade in the other. A formal welcome, a divine acknowledgement. He calls Quartz a god, and Quartz, he smiles, and says, nothing to deny it. Behind you, a feather falls from the sky. Green light still warm from the sun. The visitors are invited into the palace, and so are you. The procession is strange, awkward, like a wedding, where no one actually wants to be related. Quartz and his men gawk at the architecture, at the carvings, at the way the city floats on water like some kind of impossible jewel. Moctezuma watches them watching. You trail just behind the group, slipping into corners, listening. They bring gifts to each other, if you can call them that. The Aztecs offer gold, fine art, precious stones, featherwork that looks like it was woven by wind. You see one soldier lift a fan made of toucan feathers and whistle under his breath. Better than anything in Spain, he mutters. You wonder how long it'll be before he tries to sell it. Quartz offers mirrors, beads, swords. One of the priests carries a crucifix and holds it aloft like a torch. A few of the younger nobles flinch. A boy near you whispers, their gods hang from wood. You don't know what to say later. In a hall lined with jaguar murals and copper incense burners, Quartz is shown the great aviary, the Totocalli. Doesn't understand it. He pretends to admire the colors, nods, points, smiles when a parrot mimics his voice. But when he asks, what do you do with them, you hear the confusion in his tone. He sees them as beautiful, maybe entertaining, exotic but not sacred, and certainly not dangerous. A few soldiers laugh at the idea of trained birds. One points at a Quetzal and says, we've got hats like that in Seville. Another asks if the feathers can be boiled into soup. You flinch. Instinctively, the Amanteca nearby pretend not to hear, but they do. So do the birds that night. A private ceremony is held just for Quartz. You find a place near the edge of the courtyard, just close enough to see the main event. A gift is brought out, a cloak, one of the finest ever made, long as a shadow, shimmering with blues and greens and golds. A storm you could wear. It took over a year to create. Moctezuma presents it to him without flinching. He calls it a gesture of peace, a symbol of shared skies. You can tell he still doesn't quite believe Quartz is just a man. Quartz touches it like a banker weighing a coin, then hands it off to one of his men without a word. And just like that, 1,000 feathers lose their meaning. You leave before the ceremony ends. You can't watch it unravel. On your way back through the garden, you pass a small cage hanging open. The bird inside is gone. The perch sways, empty. Then, from the shadows, a soft voice. They're not gods. You turn. It's the young bird trainer, the one who showed you the toned scrolls. They smell like iron and wet cloth, he says. Gods don't smell like that. You nod. He looks down. Do you know what happens to birds that sing the wrong song? You don't. He answers anyway. They go quiet, and then he's gone. Above you, 2 birds chase each other across the moonlit sky, wings brushing the air with soft defiance. You look down at the feather still in your belt, and you wonder how long before it too will go quiet. Morning again. But not the gentle gold-flecked kind you've grown used to. This one comes sharp, like a knife scraping across the sky. The light feels thin, overexposed, like it forgot how to warm things. Even the birds seem disoriented. Their calls are clipped and nervous, as if they're waiting for instructions that aren't coming. You make your way through the inner palace, where the air smells of stone, ash, and a worry no one speaks aloud. The hallways are full of messengers, moving quickly, barefoot. Priests whisper in corners. Nobles pace. You hear one say, "We gave them gold. Why are they still here?" No one answers, because they are still here. The visitors. Quartz and his men now sleep inside the palace itself, in rooms once reserved for honored guests. High priests, and, sometimes, gods, but no one mistakes them for guests anymore. You're summoned not by name, because no one seems to know it, but by a glance from a feathered guard who clearly recognizes you. He leads you through the back corridors of the palace, up to a private chamber you haven't seen before. There's a man waiting, not Moctezuma. An artisan. His hands are stained with dye, his wrists wrapped in parrot thread. His eyes are red, like he hasn't slept in days. Around him are scraps of color, feathers sorted by size, texture, and impossible gradients. It smells like glue and burned honey. And in the center of the room, laid out on a silk-draped frame, is a new piece. An offering, a gift, a trap. It's the last one, the artisan says, not looking up. The last cloak we'll ever make for a stranger. You step closer. It is, without exaggeration, breathtaking. A royal mantle composed of thousands of tiny feathers, layered so precisely that light rolls across it like water. From certain angles, it looks green, from others, gold, then blue, then red. Like watching a hummingbird hover in place, too fast to hold, too beautiful to trust. In the center, a jaguar's face made of jet-black crow feathers and blood-red cardinal points. Its eyes, 2 small stones of turquoise. It's for Quartz, the artisan says. The emperor ordered it himself. You hesitate. As a peace offering, he gives a small, bitter smile. As a mirror, and suddenly you understand. This isn't a gift, it's a message. A painting made of feathers, designed to be worn once and remembered forever. A cloak that says, "We see what you are. You came as a god. But you brought claws." It's not angry. It's not even dramatic. It's accurate. The artisan runs a finger across one row of feathers. When he wears this, the gods will know whose side he's really on. You don't ask how. You don't need to. Because here's the thing. Feathers, in this world, aren't just decorations or symbols. They're spells. Not in the wand-waving lightning bolt kind of way. In the older, subtler way. Truth woven into beauty so carefully, it can't be denied. Later that day, the ceremony begins. You're allowed to stand at the edge of the royal courtyard, far enough to be polite, close enough to see it all. The priests arrive first, chanting low, their voices braided together like rope. They carry flowers, incense, and a mirror so polished it reflects the clouds. Behind them, warriors in ceremonial garb, feathered shields, bird-crested helmets, faces painted with maps of meaning. And then comes the emperor. Moctezuma moves like a man walking through fog. He wears a headdress taller than you remember, one you haven't seen before. Peacock feathers mixed with night-black raven tips, trailing like falling stars. His eyes stay on the horizon. And then Quartz enters. He wears the cloak. It fits him too well. The jaguar face lies across his back, teeth bed. The featherwork catches the sun, and you swear, for a moment. The whole thing moves, breathing, waiting. He doesn't seem to notice, or maybe he does and pretends. Not till Moctezuma approaches him. They don't speak. They exchange another gift, a golden disc inscribed with the sun, a gesture meant to signal alliance, or respect, or maybe one last delay. Quartz nods. Not quite a bow. The priest begins a blessing, but something's wrong. Wind changes. A bird flies overhead, a small one, no larger than a walnut. It chirps once, sharply. No one reacts, except the artisan, standing just a few feet from you. He flinches. That bird shouldn't be here. He whispers. You look up. It's the gray bird, the one from the House of Sound, the one that sings before endings. It lands on Quartz. shoulder and sings 3 notes, high, low, silence. The priest stops speaking. No one breathes. Quartz flicks the bird away, like an insect, and the wind dies later. In the hallways, you hear whispers. The bird was cursed. The cloak was cursed. The emperor is cursed. The city is cursed. The sky is cursed. You hear everything except the word truth. You slip into the garden that night, hoping for quiet, but the birds aren't singing. They're waiting, and you are too. The waiting ends with fire. You wake to shouting, not ceremonial, not festive, but the kind of sound that makes animals bolt and children forget how to cry. You leap to your feet before your eyes are even fully open. The feather in your belt, gone, or maybe you left it behind, or maybe it chose to leave. You rush toward the garden, but it's already too late. Smoke curls between the branches, thick and bitter. The aviary, once a cradle of color, sound, and breath, is now a hollowed-out cage. Flames chew through the edges of the wooden enclosures. Birds scream, not in song but in fear. Some burst free, others don single quotes. Do you see Totocalli, the birdcatcher, holding a shattered flute? His face is streaked with soot and disbelief. He said it was by accident, he says, choking on the words, but nothing accidental burns in 5 places at once. You know he's right. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. The Spaniards, courtsmen, had claimed they needed to secure the palace. Tensions had risen. Rumors had started. Someone had whispered rebellion, and suddenly every movement became a threat. The aviary wasn't a fortress. It didn't have weapons, but it had meaning, so they struck there first. You help Totocalli rescue what birds you can. A finch with a scorched wing, a parrot too stunned to move, one of the gray songbirds, half burned but alive, held into shaking hands. They didn't understand what they were destroying, he mutters, but deep down you suspect they did, because what better way to unmake an empire than to unmake its symbols? By midday, the fires are out. What's left is silence, a stillness that doesn't heal, just settles. Like dust, the Amontaka are gathered under a stone archway, their tools gone. Their feathers, the ones not stolen or trampled, now reduced to ash. You recognize the old man with the serpent flute. He clutches the charred remains of a fan, staring through it like it might still cast a shadow of beauty. Years of work. Someone whispers, "Gone in a morning." No one replies. Somewhere nearby you hear a Spaniard laughing, not cruelly, just carelessly, and that somehow feels worse. Later you see Moctezuma not as an emperor but as a man. He sits in a corner of the palace, surrounded by guards who now watch him, not for him. His headdress is gone, his robe simple cotton. He doesn't speak, doesn't blink, just stares at something that isn't there. Some say he tried to talk to courts, others say he refused. Some say he was struck by a stone thrown by his own people. Others say he let himself die. The stories disagree. The silence doesn't. You wander through the remains of the garden. The trees still stand, but the air feels wrong, like something holy left the space and took all the color with it. You find one of the old mosaics half buried in debris, a serpent made of hummingbird feathers. Most of it has burned away. Only the eyes remain, turquoise, bright, watching you walk deeper into the city. And you see more signs, shrines vandalized, altars repurposed, banners torn, priests forced to speak prayers in Spanish, artists told to stop using feathers and start using oil paint. Make saints, the invaders say, not spirits. Make God look like us. You pass a young girl holding a Quetzal feather, just one. Somehow it survived. She's wrapping it in cloth as if it's a newborn. When you meet her eyes, she says, if they find it, they'll take it. You nod. You won't say a word. In the following days, the empire folds in on itself. Not all at once, not loudly. It collapses the way a bird dies mid-flight. No crash, no cry, just a silence where there used to be motion. Some people flee, others stay, pretending not to grieve, pretending they never believed in feathers, in gods, in birds that sang prophecies. The garden is repurposed. Its trees are cut, the cages become storage. What's left of the Totocalli is stripped bare, turned into a stable, and the birds, they either die or stop singing. You stand in the center of the old aviary one last time. It smells like smoke and forgetting, but then, just barely, you hear it, a single note, not from above, from the shadows, a songbird, one of the survivors that sings a fragment of something you remember, a melody from the house of sound. 3 notes, high, low, silence. You whistle it back. The bird answers, and for a moment, one breath, the air feels alive again, but then the bird flies away, not toward the sky, toward the east, and you understand. It's not staying, neither should you. You leave the garden behind. The burnt wood, the silence, the memories folded in ash, all of it fades with each step, but only on the outside. Inside, the feathers remain. They don't burn so easily. Night falls strange. It doesn't creep in softly like before. It drops heavy and fast, like someone pulling a black curtain across the world. The city barely lights its torches anymore. Too many are afraid to be seen. Even the moon seems reluctant to look directly at what's happened. You find yourself in a house you don't remember entering. Quiet, dim, the air smells of dried herbs and clay dust. Wind chimes made of bird bones hang by the door, barely stirring. And seated at the center of the room is a woman so old she seems carved from driftwood and smoke. She doesn't look at you, just gestures toward the mat in front of her. You sit. She begins speaking before you ask a single question. You want to know what happened to them, she says. Her voice is dry, whispery, like a page turning in a room no one walks through anymore. The birds that vanished. The ones that never sang again. You nod. Some were killed. Some fled. Some simply forgot who they were. She pauses. And some ... didn't die. Not really. She reaches behind her, draws out a small pouch, and spills it across the floor. Feathers, but not normal ones. They shimmer in ways your eyes can't quite follow. The colors shift too quickly, like they're remembering something faster than your mind can process. These are memory feathers, she says, from birds that lived inside stories. Not all of them were real, but all of them were true. She leans forward. Do you want to see? Before you can answer, she places one feather in your palm. Everything shifts. You're no longer in the house. You're in the sky. Not metaphorically, actually. You're flying high above the valley. The city glows below you like a map drawn from starlight, but it's not the broken city you left behind. It's whole, alive. The canals glimmer. The gardens bloom. The birds, thousands of them, fill the air with such sound it's like the wind has learned to sing. You blink, you're back in the house of sound. Except it's bigger, brighter. The gray bird, the one that sang before everything ended, is perched calmly on a stone altar. It looks at you, then turns away. You blink again. Now you're in a dark cave. Paintings cover every surface. Feathered serpents, flower birds, warriors with wings. You feel heat, not fire. Breath, something behind you watching you turn. But not fast enough. Another blink. A river dot, a boat dot, feathers scattered like petals across the water. A woman sits at the front. You recognize her, Xochitl, the flowerbird girl from the story. She hums a song you don't know, but almost do. She looks at you and she smiles, then it all vanishes. You're back in the room. Your heart is pounding. The old woman watches you carefully. You saw them, she says. The ones we lost. You try to speak, but your voice is feather thin. She nods. They're not truly gone. Not if we remember their songs. Not if someone still dreams them. You'd ask, or try to, why the feathers came to you. She chuckles. The birds always choose the listener. And sometimes, they choose someone who shouldn't have heard anything at all. You don't know what that means. You don't need to. She gathers the memory feathers, wrapping them carefully, almost lovingly. Then she hands you one. A single piece, red at the base, blue at the tip. It weighs almost nothing, but your fingers tremble for the next story. She says, you'll know when you stand. Your legs feel strange, like they belong to someone who's walked through more than one world. You step outside. The street is empty. But overhead, you hear wings, faint, distant, then closer. A single call echoes in the dark. Not sad, not afraid, just awake. You turn your face to the sky, and for the first time in days you smile. You don't sleep that night. Not because you're afraid, or haunted or lost, but because your mind is full. Not thoughts, images. The city restored. The feathers that shifted color like dreams, adjusting themselves mid-flight. The woman's voice. The memory that wasn't yours, but now lives inside your chest like it's been waiting there for generations. By morning, you're walking again, this time, not to a garden or a ceremony or a battlefield dressed in feathers. You're drawn to a quiet building at the edge of the city, near what used to be a ceremonial plaza and is now mostly dust and the occasional goat. The structure is simple, adobe walls, a domed roof, and no guards at the door. Just a painted sign, two Quetzals facing each other. Beaks open in song. You step inside, and it takes your breath. It's a museum. No, a reliquary, not of bones. Of wings. Every surface is lined with featherwork. Panels, masks, cloaks, fans, each piece so rich with color and shape that your eyes don't know where to rest. But it's not overwhelming. It's gentle, reverent. The silence in this place is not emptiness, it's listening. A young attendant greets you with a nod. You're here for them, she says. It's not a question. You follow her into the main gallery. There it is, the Emperor's cloak. The real one, not the one given to courts. That one is lost, sold, stolen, dissected, or sitting somewhere behind glass in a place that doesn't remember what it means. This cloak was hidden, preserved, guarded like a breath between heartbeats. It shines with greens you didn't know feathers could hold. Deep, endless blues. Threads of gold so thin they almost disappear unless the light hits just right. You step closer, and somehow, without touching it, you feel its weight. Not in your hands, in your chest. This is history without a textbook, power without shouting, grief wrapped in beauty. You lean closer, and for a second, you see your own reflection in the surface of the feathers. But it's not just you, it's all the moments you've walked through. The songbird in the ashes, the girl in the mural, the gray bird's three-note warning. The stories haven't vanished, they've gathered. On the far wall, smaller pieces are displayed. A priest's mask shaped like a serpent's mouth, lined in parrot plumes. A child's headband of dove feathers and red thread. A mourning fan, all black, carried in funeral rites for fallen warriors who were said to rise again. In bird form. Every piece tells a story, and some tell more than one. You pause in front of a tiny panel barely bigger than your hand. It shows a single bird mid-flight, wings outstretched, trailing a line of flame. The label reads only. No one knows who made this. You smile because you do. You recognize the pattern in the flame, the way it bends. It's the same rhythm the gray bird sang, the same notes you whistled back, the melody of ending and beginning. At the back of the museum there's a room you almost miss. It's darker, smaller, no labels, no guards. Inside one display, a circle of feathers suspended by invisible thread. They float, unmoving, red, green, black, white. You step into the circle, just one step, and you hear it. Not a voice, not a song, memory, the sound of the garden, before the fires, the courtyard where birds learn to sing, the laughter of a girl made of flowers, the heartbeat of a city that never wanted to forget. The air shifts, the feathers shimmer. One of them, green with gold edges, flutters as if nudged by an unseen wind. You step back, and as you leave the room, you realize the museum isn't just preserving objects, it's preserving resistance, not the kind with swords or shouts, the kind that whispers through time, that says, you may burn the cages, but you cannot burn the sky. Outside, the sun is setting, but the birds are singing again, not all of them, just enough. And you know, the garden never really disappeared. It just moved from earth to memory to you. The streets are quieter now, not because people aren't talking, but because something deeper has settled over the city. The kind of quiet that comes after grief has bloomed and wilted, and all that's left is what refuses to die. You walk without purpose, or maybe that is your purpose now. The museum is behind you. The feathers are still singing there, soft and stubborn. The old woman's voice still curls in the folds of your memory. The girl in the mural still waits by her blooming tree, and somewhere, birds with stories sewn into their wings still circle above you, not watching, guarding. The streets open into a wide courtyard, and suddenly, you realize where you are. The garden, or rather, what's left of it, but you stop because something's changed. You kneel, and there it is, a sprout, small, green, unapologetically alive. Just one. It grows in the middle of a stone crack, defiantly reaching toward the sun with the same energy the emperor once wore like a crown. Around it, broken fragments of cages and charred beams still linger, but the plant doesn't care. It rises, you smile, and from the corner of your vision something moves. A bird, just one. You turn slowly. It's not large, not rare, just a simple, brown-feathered thrush with a bright orange chest and a nervous tilting head, but it holds something in its beak. A feather, green, soft, too, perfect for chance. You reach out and the bird drops it gently into your open palm, then it flies away. No flourish, no music, just grace. You sit there a long time, the feather warm in your hand, and you understand the garden isn't a place anymore, it's a pulse, a rhythm that lives now, not in soil or stone, but in breath, in stories, in the quiet corners of memory where beauty refuses to be silenced. It's in the way people still weave feathers into their hair, on festival days, even if the festivals are smaller now, quieter, whispered across back patios under borrowed moons. It's in the song a grandmother hums to a baby in a hammock. It's in the mural half painted on a school wall that no one has the funding to finish. It's in you. You don't know how long you sit there. At some point, a breeze brushes your cheek. The feather lifts slightly from your palm, then settles again, not flying off, just reminding you it could. You smile, then laugh, low and soft, because you finally get the joke. All this time, you thought you were following the birds, but really, they've been following you, waiting for the moment you'd realize. The Aztec garden didn't grow flowers, it grew feathers, it grew memory, it grew you. And now in the quiet, with the last of the sun stretching long shadows across the earth, you feel your heartbeat slower, softer, a rhythm, like wings, like leaves, like lullabies, woven into wind. So rest now. You've carried the story far. Let the garden grow again behind your eyelids. Let the birds return to their branches. Let your breath become the breeze that keeps their songs alive. End of script. Sweet dreams.